Welcome to the Warrant and Finance Committee meeting of 1 April 2019. Mr. Gore has provided us with some concerns regard to the warrant articles which we received recently. We have the treasurer here to answer questions. We also have Jennifer, the town administrator, here for input. Where is Mr. Oh, there he is. I was going to say, where is Mr. Gore? Okay. In looking this over, on the first two that you had concerns concerning Article 5 and Article 6, the only thing that I can say about those, Tom, is that you're going to have to bring those up to the Board of Selectmen, primarily because, number one, we aren't going to be making a recommendation on those two articles. Those are articles that are going to be voted on under secret ballot.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Yes.
They're part of the warrant.
Right. They are part of the warrant,
and
yes.
where they're part of the warrant, we do make a recommendation.
Not on a secret ballot, you don't. You make no recommendations on secret ballot questions. Per the town administrator.
I would like to see the legal on that, because traditionally we have voted on all ordinances. We always have.
I'll pull up your ordinance for you.
Okay.
It's only like a one-page type of deal.
As far as let's see.
Article 11.
Article 11.
Okay.
We're going to kind of jump around a little bit, only because we have certain people here, and I don't want to keep those people here unnecessarily. So if we can just bounce around a little bit, and everybody bear with us. Article 11 is to see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to appropriate and expend monies from undesignated fund balance for the purchase of equipment or to use as they deem advisable to meet unanticipated expenses and emergencies that occur during fiscal year 19 and 20. Maximum expenditure is $15,000. Tom would like to amend that article, or recommends amending that article.
May I, Mr. Chairman, address this, my concern
Jump
here?
on in, Tom.
Beg your pardon?
Jump on in.
Okay. This restores this article to the way it was created and administered up until about 2015 or thereabouts. The initial article to allow the selectmen to do that was created with the proviso that all expenditures that had not been approved by the town meeting be reviewed. And Dennis, you're going to have to remind me what the terminology is here, if you remember, or Carol, one of you will remember, right? It wasn't as I have it recommended and approved, but did the same thing. Okay. What happened was, in about 2015, the selectmen came to us and had written the article and deleted the approval part. And the Warrant and Finance Committee objected. And we were told that they didn't really care what we thought, that's the way it was going to be written. And when that occurred, I said, then I don't want any part of the approval process because I don't want to be any part of that. That if I'm not going to have a registered opinion. So that's the background there. Okay. I don't think ever that the committee should be put in position of asked for a recommendation and then not having that recommendation recorded. I also think that having the process set up so that when they're arbitrarily spending money, when the selectmen are arbitrarily spending money, and I don't use that term in a pejorative manner, that it's good protection for them. Okay? Because if there are things that they're not aware of or information they don't have, they need as broad an input as possible. So, and that's our job. And we also need to be able to explain to the public why it's okay to do that. Or if we object to it, why. Okay, that's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the original intent of this article was, from time to time, when they first put this article in there, was we had some opportunities. I remember when we bought a generator one year for down to the tractor shed. Before we had electricity down there, it was a government surplus deal that we could pick up for a certain amount of money, and a few times there was stuff with the fire department that they could pick up through the state, reasonable, and the town had set that at $5,000. About 2010, 2011, they changed it to $15,000. We had a fire truck that was down.
Was that approved by the town?
Yes.
The increase from 5,000 to 15,000?
Yes. And
There was a warrant article?
Yes, and I'm giving the reason why it was
Increase.
turned to a larger amount was we had a fire truck that was down, and we had an opportunity at the time to buy a fire truck from Kittery or someplace like that. It was around $12,000–13,000. They were just getting rid of it. And how that worked that year was the selectmen took the $5,000 they had. The firemen gave up their stipends so that we could have the money to buy that fire truck. And then at the annual town meeting, that money was put back into the fire department, and the firemen got their pay. So that's the reason why it's 15,000. It was never set up for unexpected emergencies. For example, if the furnace went here, this isn't what this was for. Right. That wasn't the intent of the town when it was set up, and I don't know why really the wording of it was changed.
Well, I know why, I just told you. Sorry, Dennis.
Well, I read back through probably 15 years of town reports, and there was a few articles that were in there that were with the advice and consent of the Warrant and Finance.
That's correct.
And then it slowly changed from that a few years later to advice and recommendations of the Warrant and Finance Committee, and then those articles were put in there without those notations.
It's fine with me. I just.
Wasn't that the year that they didn't have Warrant and Finance any longer during that time?
What time was that frame?
When
I have no idea
when
because
he lost track of where we were, because they revamped this group.
I have no idea because when I got done, I
Yeah, no,
I didn't participate for a while actively until.
I know they revamped the group, and I don't know if it was during the time that you're missing that information or not.
Revamp what group?
This group, our group, the Warrant and Finance. We're a whole new entity at this point.
And for a point of clarification on that article, it has only been used once in the last 5 years, according to the treasurer, and that money is down to take down the old sand and salt building. Other than that, in the last 5 years, the selectmen have not touched that. Certainly, you can make your recommendation to include the recommendation of the Warrant and Finance. So that's how it's been written. And if I could, just for a quick second, Roland, back to the ordinances, I pulled. Warrant and Finance has never made recommendations on secret ballots, but Dennis does have a point. Your ordinance says the committee shall review all proposed warrant articles except any articles which involve the election of municipal officers.
Right.
And shall obtain factual data to determine their effect on the town. So it says you shall review all proposed warrant articles.
That's correct, thank you. That's my understanding, and my understanding is consistent with your past practice. The only ones we didn't make recommendations on were on election of officers and officials.
Thank you.
But it's still going to be on secret ballot. I mean, you know, unless they.
That's your choice, and
Board's choice.
right, and I recognize that that is as it is.
So I guess we are going to have to make a recommendation on 5 and 6. So what's the committee's feelings as far as the recommendation on 11 from Tom?
Is that $500 a misprint, though?
No.
Beg your pardon?
Is that $500 a misprint?
No, it wasn't, Dennis. I just thought it was kind of an
Just
in-between.
asking.
Oh, I mean, we can delete it if you want and insert the terminology that you referred to, and I was trying to remember it, and I was working so fast I didn't go back and flush it out.
I'm having a hard time following along. Are we still talking about Article 11, or did we back up to Article
We're still
5?
talking about.
No, we're
Article
still
Okay,
talking.
thanks.
I'm trying to
Finish this one.
finish
and
one,
Okay.
and then,
Yep.
you know,
No problem.
move from there.
What was the terminology, Arnold?
It was advice and consent,
Consent, right.
or advice and recommendations.
Right. Well, it changed to advice and recommendations
Right,
later
it
on.
was originally-
When the consent was initially required, in about 2015, the consent was omitted, and that's when we said, if you don't need our consent, I'm not going to advise, or I said that anyway.
Mr. Chairman, are you making recommendations tonight? Are you actually voting on the article and voting on a recommendation with those words, or the committee's just taking it under advisement?
I would say that we should probably take it under advisement, and we can hash it out.
In the next couple of.
Can I just get a statement to put in the minutes that we're going to revisit? How do you want this worded?
We'll revisit 5 and 6, Articles 5 and 6. I'd like to move on to the articles that concern the treasurer so that I can let this woman go home.
She'd probably appreciate that.
I'm here all day.
So we're going to revisit.
Are you planning on coming to more of these meetings, Michelle?
Only when asked.
Well, reason why I ask is that there's questions I have on the road budget. If you feel that the road commissioner should be able to answer them.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? I just want to get straight.
Go ahead.
In my head. Who is actually doing the drafting on this warrant?
I'm doing the draft.
Okay, that's what I thought, Michelle. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, and the board has made some changes along the way.
Right.
I do have an amendment to the actual packet that you have there.
Okay.
The last page needs to be replaced.
Okay. All right, well, we're a ways away from the last page, so
A long
in
way.
the interest of moving on, we,
So, Mr. Chair, are we going to do Tom's, or do you want to go on to, so whatever questions we have to move to Michelle can be done?
Tom has several questions regarding articles that are definitely under Michelle's auspice. So let's skip down to Article 31. Tom's concerns are Article 31. Tom, would you care to wade in on 31?
well, if I can refresh my memory as to what this says, let me do that first before I misspeak. I think my first issue there is we have account number differences, so the reference between the account book that we have and what you actually show there, Michelle, differs, and
Oh, the account summary.
right, and I think I resolved that in my own mind. So I think we just need those numbers straightened out so that the budget document that we have correlates with the reference to the accounts in that article.
Well, those, the 10407, and is that what you're talking about? Because in the warrant, those are the numbers that are, those are the account, the first two sets of numbers in the accounts.
When I look at my budget book, I found it, but it has has different account numbers. Okay, and if you want to pursue that, 104.
Oh, it's missing the second number in your budget, in your book.
The in-between number, the 04 part is missing, yeah, okay. That's fine, it's just a matter of clarification. I think I'm happy with it, but I think we just need to clear that up. And the second part of this contains a note. Okay, lease expires. Oh. The second question here on 31 is a recurring issue for a number of years now. When this contract was originally signed, we were told by Selectman Walsh that this was going to be renegotiated and that we could get out of it at any point in time. I understand we can get out of it at any point in time. We were also told that new sites were being investigated and other towns were being asked to participate. It's my recollection we all agreed at the time that $400 a month was a pretty big sum of money to rent a small piece of land. But from what you have written here, it says that we're in this till 2024.
Well, that's when the contract expires.
Okay.
That we signed. However, we can get out at any time. There's wording in the contract to do so.
Okay, all right.
We are being reimbursed by York County Emergency Communications, $1,200 a year out of that $4,800. We're not, I mean, of course, we're not being reimbursed the whole thing,
Right.
As they didn't agree to the lease. You know, they weren't part of
Right.
the negotiations there. It's my understanding that York County Emergency Communications was still in search of an alternate location where they didn't have to pay a lease.
Okay, so we're paying the bill, but we're not responsible for finding the site. Is that what you're saying, basically? I mean, why would they respond to us if we're paying the bill for them?
And I think those are, those questions and the balance of the 3,600 that we're not getting any reimbursement from really should be directed to the Board of Selectmen.
I don't disagree, but...
So they have the authority to, you know, we can put it on next Tuesday's agenda for the full board to talk about. They have the authority to reach out to the other towns and try to get them to pay a portion of it. You know, you indicated Mr. Walsh said that at some point. You know, I can't. That
goes back to the first year, but
right. Yeah. So I mean, you know, why not? Let's go back to the selectmen and ask them to renegotiate that and reach out to some towns. That's fine with me. I just we talked about this again 2 years ago or 1 year ago. I can't remember which. And we were told blah 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 blah. I mean, if we're renting a space and we own the tower, we could probably be putting telephone things up there, you know, and making money on this deal, as opposed to spending this, right? Bring back to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you. Did I have another one on 30? Oh, well, it's up to the chairman to decide where he wants to go.
Move on down.
24.
Account identified as 105-26.
I mean, it's a new account that the annual maintenance of Flat Ground Road will be a new account. That's kind of a number holder that I put in to the extent is the next in session there for Flat Ground Road grading.
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't get my question written out there. I just thinking that this is a new expense now. And it's been traditional that when we have a new expense like this, we go to the town meeting in a single article. Okay, it's bad policy in any case to put multiple questions in one article. It's also, or ask multiple questions in a single article. In this case, I think it probably should be broken out, okay? And Dennis, I hope you don't object, but I think that's only fair, that we discuss that as a separate article.
I wouldn't call it a new article. The town voted last year to agree to maintain it every year, so the town agreed to maintain it in that contract. I mean, we have to maintain the grading, so
Okay, I think what we, if we go back and look at the article, my recollection is we created an account to reconstruct it.
Excuse me.
I don't think we said anything about ongoing maintenance here.
Yes, certainly.
Okay, all right. Well,
Let's see.
if we did, then I will stand down. I didn't get a chance, but I still think it'd be a good idea to have it in there as a separate article. I don't think, it's not enough, it's not much money, and I think the town will go for it, but,
Trying to remember what article it was.
It was the town did agree to a
What's that?
contract. The town did agree to a contract
They did.
to maintain the road to a certain point.
okay. I'm fine. It was a busy day, let's put it that way,
Yeah.
after I got the warrant.
No issues from me.
Mr. Chair, what's your wish?
Are we done with 34? Or are we still researching?
I mean, I have the articles, what do you say, they're about a page and a half, but it is included in there as far as the maintenance of these.
Okay, but that town meeting did not have the authority to enter into a contract beyond the term of that article. All right, so there's another point, but I'll go back and look at the article and bring the question back if I still have it.
Well, that question could have been resolved easily just by reopening the road. However, from what I understand, they don't want to reopen the road. So technically, Flat Ground Road still is classified as closed, which it shouldn't be.
Who objected to reopening the road, can I ask? Where was that objection?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I was, and this was a compromise that the Board of Selectmen and the representatives from Flat Ground Road reached.
But it's a compromise that never should have been entered into, is my point. My point is that Flat Ground Road was closed because of a particular reason, okay? The bridge on the other end of the road going into Wakefield was,
Never got built.
well, I think it fell apart,
It burned.
burned, whatever. So they didn't disestablish the road, they closed it. Road closure is only good for a certain amount of time. It should have been brought back up and reopened. And if the road isn't going to go all the way through to New Hampshire, as it did at one point in time, then it should have been reopened as a dead-end road and a specific location been, established as the dead end. But that's getting off the track of what we're here to do tonight.
Except for
So-
one,
What, Tom?
I have to ask Dennis, and I don't know the answer to this. Was your family living down there when this occurred?
Yes,
Had your father down there?
my grandfather was.
How the devil did they discontinue a road with an occupant on it?
They didn't
They didn't
discontinue it.
discontinue the
Okay,
road.
right. They
They
couldn't-
closed it.
Closed it.
There is
Well,
a
the town
difference
meeting was to
between
close it.
closed
And
and
discontinued.
discontinued or disestablished or abandoned.
Right.
These are all terms that,
Yep.
the state utilizes.
And
And
I
has
think
very
that-
specific requirements for disestablishment of a road.
Right.
And I think that the town has spent a considerable amount of money over the years with lawyers trying to get a decision, and they've gotten several conflicting
Opinions.
And I think that, that was the issue. It's not something that we want to continue taking to the lawyers. And that's why, we came up with this agreement, we put it before the town meeting approved it, and until the town meeting disapproves it, I feel as a resident on Flat Ground Road that that agreement stands until somebody says it doesn't.
It absolutely does. Every minute.
I don't have a problem with the agreement. I just curious in my own mind how the town could have abandoned it or closed it or did whatever they did to it when your father was living down there year round.
We've got about a 5-inch file on it, I'd love to.
Oh, yeah?
Okay,
Okay, all right, thanks. I'll let it go for
And he
right
was
now.
6 years old when it got closed, so he might not have a great memory of that.
I'll let it go for now, but I'm curious. Go ahead.
All right, Tom,
Excuse me.
another one of yours. Article 37.
Okay. There are 4 types of reserve accounts here, and it's important to tell us which one you want, and it doesn't say in here because the way you define the account determines how the fund is administered and what you can do with it and what you need to do with it in order to utilize it. There's the document. You probably have it.
Capital improvement, Tom.
Beg your pardon?
The capital improvement.
Okay, that's what I suspected. All right.
Can we go,
Okay.
By repair and replace.
Okay. The one problem with that is that you'll notice that this requires a specific or type of capital improvement be part of the article. And specific means a legal definition, all right, for a capital improvement, like an architect's plan or a plan prepared by somebody legally qualified to do it and describe the project. And we don't have that here. So I guess I'd suggest that if you're going to say capital improvement, let's put it in there because that's what it is. And then that needs further definition or something to describe what it's all about. Okay? But it does require either a legal description or a type, and that's usually referred to as a manufactured product or something like that, that is, it might be a mobile home or whatever, who knows, but it's a product that you can either describe by make and model for equipment. Go ahead, excuse me.
I think it would be hard to describe here, Tom, whereas this is being set up as a reserve, so we know that there are several bridges and culverts that are failing. So there's not one specific one right now that we could list. We know we're going to have to do repairs on several bridges.
Right, and I recognize that. Yep, yep.
So it would be hard to describe there. And in looking at, you know, the establishment, it just says capital improvement account, financing the acquisition or reconstruction of a specific or type of. And type of is culverts and bridges.
Type of refers to make and model, or again, a legal description like a deed or a plan, but we can go.
Make and model would.
Make and model.
That a type of would be capital equipment account, and this is a capital improvement account.
Well, most of it would be equipment, but it could be, for instance, a mobile home or something else that was, but there's where I'm coming from on it, okay? I'm not sure that this is an appropriate use for that type of account for the reasons stated.
We'll send it to legal.
Okay, yep, and we'll see what happens there. Okay,
can I ask a question?
sure.
Tom's referenced over the course of several meetings that there's different types of reserve accounts, and that was one of the questions why I asked you to be here, because I have no idea what those are.
So there are, what we reserve money all the time. I like to call them carry forward accounts, because we have a handful of them. The statutory reserve account allows the selectmen the authority, like last year we set up one for the private road associations, allows the selectmen authority to spend it at any time as they deem advisable, you know, if it meets the qualifications of the article. Whereas the carry forward reserves, the town has to approve that every year, whether they're going to allow those to be spent or not. So if it's not on the list in whatever article it is that we carry forward here this year, Article 70, we have a list of, I don't know, probably 12 or 13 accounts there. Some of them we carry forward and appropriate, and some of them we carry forward but we don't appropriate. The ones that we don't appropriate are because we don't have specific needs for them this year that we know of in advance. So the board feels that it's not appropriate to appropriate them without everybody knowing what they're going to spend those funds on.
But they still get earmarked for that account in the future,
Exactly.
and that's kind of like the rec capital improvement?
Exactly.
Okay,
Rec capital gets earmarked every year.
all right.
A statutory reserve, once it's created, the selectmen are the trustees of that account and not the town body.
That's my understanding also. The problem is, though, when you look and read the law and study the way it's administered, it is very clear that it's legislative intent that the people understand what they're spending the money for. And all the types of reserve accounts that the statutes enable us to create, it's very clear, again, that it is a legislative intent that the people understand as clearly as possible what the money is being spent for. That's why the terms, when we talk about capital equipment accounts and capital improvement accounts, the term specific enters in there. When you go to a credit reserve account, which is pretty much arbitrary, okay, those contingency accounts, the law, whether it is old school law, because this has been removed from school law as it applies to us now, but the articles require that when an emergency exists or when you're going to expend from this fund, that you have to go to the town meeting to get its approval. And in the last type of reserve account that is possible under Title 30A, the sinking fund account, these are monies that have already been committed, okay? And the purpose here, as you know, is to put a bunch of money in it and you can spend it down. Again, the point being that the body politic understand exactly what the money is being spent for. That is the intent of these provisions, okay? So understanding that, maybe we can work toward a solution, but boom.
Done with 37? Any further questions on 37? Oh, Lord, have mercy.
I hope other people have questions besides me.
Oh, I have plenty of questions, Tom. We're just gonna go through your list. See, you wrote all yours down, mine's all up here.
Okay, I can't do that anymore. I'm too old, it all falls out.
Well, that's why I get mine all mixed up.
That's why you wear a hat down to keep it in, right?
Article 70.
Okay, in order to understand my thoughts on Article 70, you have to go back and look at some recommendations I made with respect to Article 22, okay? Article 70 designates the FEMA funds under the portion of the article that allows the town meeting to carry and appropriate. Well, if you put that under there, the question arises, what are you appropriating for? There's no designated purpose anywhere for that fund except the purpose designated and made clear in Article 22. So I would ask you to go back and look at Article 22, where I did recommend a change. That's on the front page of this set of stuff, I think, I hope. 22, yes. If you pull out your Article 22 from the warrant, I'm suggesting that let me get it up here. Sorry. That the wording in Article 22 be changed slightly, altered, and to delete the first application of the term appropriate and substitute accept, which is normally what we do when we are receiving funds. We accept funds, okay? We don't appropriate them until we accept them. The town meeting requires that we vote to accept those funds. Of course, we do that in other places. It applies here too, and that's fine, okay? And my second part of the recommendation here is that, let's see, where it says delete the term utilize and there substitute the term appropriate. So we accepted appropriate, which is the normal wording for the application of dealing with funds that are coming to us from somewhere else. And then add a provision Does everybody understand that? Everybody found that so far?
We understand, continue.
Okay. Is everybody, okay. If everybody understands, then I suggest adding the following wording. The size of the appropriation to restore department budgets is not to exceed the expenditure incurred during the declared emergency and approved in the treasurer's warrant. Approved in the treasurer's warrant means that the selectmen have authorized the expenditure of funds. That's all it does, because as it is now, there's no real cap on that. Or let me say this, the cap is not clearly established, and that's what the intent here is, to clearly establish how much can be transferred from the FEMA account.
I appreciate what you're saying, Tom, but FEMA, if my limited experience, isn't gonna reimburse us more money than what it's cost us, right?
And sometimes
That's true, Dennis, but the problem is we have recurring sums coming in here so that we may have funds for more than one event, and in fact, we do not have the funds that we get reimbursed that are applicable in any year. Those funds come in subsequent
The
years.
following year.
Right.
Right.
So this is a reserve account, as
see
I
what you're
understand it,
Yeah, I see what you're
okay,
saying. Yeah.
that we carry. Thank you, Michelle, for that we carry, all right? And it has a bunch of money in it, okay? At any point in time, depending upon the events over the past 2 or 3 or 4 years, okay? So that's why.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Excuse me, doesn't Article 71 ask the people to accept government funds?
Yes, it does, and I don't disagree with you, but we do say the same thing here in a couple different places with respect to those funds. I understand what you're saying, okay? I'm just thinking it's a little bit more clear where we accept these funds and we put them in that account, because this basically this article is that we put those funds in that account. Or, yeah, or that we can, appropriate from that for that purpose. What the accept says is this is where these funds come from.
Can I ask a question? And I apologize if this is foolish, but Article 22 is giving the selectmen permission to, the selectmen permission to accept the funds from FEMA and put the money in whatever department expended the money that, to deal with the emergency?
What happens currently and how this is written is the money comes in 2 years later. We've already had the emergency. We can't restore a budget that happened 2 years ago. So the idea is, when this was created as a disaster reserve fund, was that when there was a declared event, and it has to be declared by either the governor or the president, that when there's a declared event that would wipe out District 1, District 2, Fire Department, Emergency Management, wipe out a budget, that money could be used to offset those costs for that emergency, knowing that we're not going to get those funds for another 2 years to restore that budget. That was the intent of the article when it was created.
That's correct.
Quite a while ago.
That's correct. That actually was created around 204, 205.
And then for Article 70, having it in the section that's to be carried forward to be appropriated to the designated department. So that is allowing, if there is a disaster, to take money from that capital fund and make like the road budget whole again, replace what they spent. That's what and if there isn't a disaster, then it wouldn't get touched,
Exactly.
correct? Okay.
Well, that may be true, and this is why I raised the question regarding appropriation, because those first funds up there are carried and appropriated. That's why I raised the question, what are they appropriated for? It doesn't say.
A declared event.
Doesn't say that.
Well, I mean,
The fund does.
the fund does. When we're Article 22 tells us what we're using that fund for.
I won't carry it around in circles. I think my approach here is a little bit clearer. I understand what the intent is. I was part of drafting this initially, and I wasn't satisfied with it then. We've never been satisfied with it since, and I worked a little bit on that to try and clean it up a little bit. But I've said enough.
Any other questions on?
Oh, wait a minute. I did have some questions.
Michelle, how much funding do we actually still have in FEMA at this point? Roughly. Don't have to be right on that. While we got you here, you might as well hear it.
FEMA. There's 48,000 in there.
And there's nothing to our knowledge that's gonna come up and spend it. It's just gonna stay and roll over until cows come home, basically.
Right, until the next declared event. They have been declaring, 2 years ago, it was a windstorm that we had, and maybe a year or so before that, it was actually a snowstorm.
Now, can any of this, and I don't know 100%, can any of that be used towards, like, if we have road disasters or bridges disasters or something like that? Do they have to be declared definitely through the state and government, or could it be used for?
By the way the article was written, because at the time when the article was written, it was a voice that it just didn't want it. They didn't just want the board to be able to spend it on
willy-nilly,
letting them just go over on their budget and replenishing it. So it was for a FEMA declared event. Change of wording would allow it to be spent on anything disaster related.
Well, I was just thinking, we're having problems with the bridges, and the bridge falls in tomorrow. I don't know. I don't even know which one we're talking. Could that money be used for that, or that's just still part of the other budget? Okay.
If that bridge collapses, is the federal government going to declare emergency because that bridge collapsed?
I don't know. I guess it's
No.
between Maine and New Hampshire.
They're not.
They might if I'm on the bridge and I'm in the water and I'm polluting it.
Only if you yell real loud, Dennis.
Mr. Chairman, I just
I
like.
was just curious.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Can I'm sorry. Can I revisit this for just a minute?
Revisit what part?
70 with respect to the FEMA funds.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
if we read the article that precedes this, it says it permits to be designated to the designated department for the ensuing year. The problem is there's no designated department here for these funds.
I'm sorry?
There's no designated department, as I understand the department as we use the term. So the second sentence in here says, balance of funds forward to be appropriated to the designated department. There's the issue. There's no department. Okay. I've said enough on that. Okay. So that's the issue that I was working on there. Okay. I did have some other questions with respect to 70, but if somebody else wants to.
Forestry Reserve is not a statutory reserve fund.
Okay, thank you.
For what purpose? The Forestry Reserve Fund. Last year, it wasn't zero, and then last year we appropriated $3,000 for the forestry management plan for the balance to go into that fund. The idea was that if there were any permits needed from DEP, if they needed to do any mailings to notify or publications in the newspaper, whatever might come up in that plan, that there would be money to cover those types of costs.
Okay, so that's forestry administration basically, right, is what you're saying?
And we're still waiting for that plan, aren't we?
Actually, just got turned into the board last week. Will be on their agenda next week on the 9th.
Thank you.
The part of Article 70 that's in italics, all of those accounts we don't necessarily have to have on the budget, and really we're not looking for approval on the warrant. That was just a note so that for transparency, over the past few years, many different committee members have requested to know what type of funds are getting carried over from year to year, and unless they look at the town report, which most people don't, they don't know that we have these accounts. So the statutory bridge culvert reserve, if approved, doesn't necessarily have to be in that article, but anything in italics there are just there for information purpose.
Okay, if that's the case, because we've had this issue with other warrants, and whenever you put stuff on a warrant, it becomes confusing. Can I simply suggest that the italicized wording go down below the article itself and the recommendations? And I don't have a problem with it if you include it, but it becomes an issue when people are trying to understand what they're voting on. And I commend you for including it, and I think that's good for the purpose of education, but we have to make sure everybody understands what they're voting on, if you can. Okay, so that's just a matter of moving it up and down, if that's all right with you. Okay, all right, thank you.
Article 70, the cemetery fund. The cemetery fund listed on here is not the trust fund.
It's not, okay.
The cemetery committee's funds.
Right.
So
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So just to clarify.
Enough said.
Yeah.
And I had paperwork.
They're carrying it over, they're trying to build a balance to repair some stones
Right.
and so forth.
Right.
They've got a lot of work ahead of them.
I
Yep.
have paperwork if anybody's interested in what they have in each account, so,
No,
So this is not the trust fund.
no.
no.
Okay, so maybe we need a little bit of wording in there just to clarify that too. Okay, this the cemetery account.
I can add the word cemetery committee fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'll do it, just to distinguish it
That's the
from the,
trust funds, and that's what we have.
Okay.
That's the cemetery funds themselves.
whatever it needs to be to separate it from the trust fund that we hold as in a fiduciary capacity.
Because I know at one point, and this is several years ago, and they used to list what we had for trust funds and how much were in it. I don't know if that's something, I don't know.
We don't need to get into it.
No, I'm going back, I don't even know why they even took it out. They used to list the cemeteries and the funds they had.
Way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
Just so people knew,
In the town report.
Yep.
that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
yeah. I don't know if there's
I mean,
something.
we certainly can, it's just more space.
Oh, I know, and that's kind of why I think they eliminated it, was
I
because
mean,
of
I
space.
had it all, like you have, I had it all on a spreadsheet.
I think what happened there was when people came in search of having, when the organizations were thinning out and the town took on the business of managing the funds, the selectmen at the time felt that it was appropriate that the town be aware of what they were doing. So really they were seeking approval to allow the town to administer those funds. And then after time, the question came up, why do we do that? So they took it out, but whatever. Just so we know, though, which is which here. That's what's important to my way of
Problem
thinking.
is, under state and federal law, you can't just willy-nilly these funds that that the cemeteries have.
Right.
You're only entitled to use about 30%, and it all depends upon what you're using it for.
Yep.
For those particular cemeteries, which there happens to be 2, 4, at this point, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. There might be one more we're in debation about at this point, which is over on the ridge. We still have to get together and find out more about that one, whether they want just the vets or the whole cemetery. It's still been one of those questions we still haven't really answered.
And there will always be more questions.
Are there any more questions concerning Tom's concerns?
No, but I do have some while we're on the cemeteries and stuff. This is a warrant that the selectmen revisited after our last workshop. So this is more or less the official warrant that we're going to be voting on.
It is possible the board can make changes, but they have seen this, yes. And we did, if you were present at the selectmen's meeting last week, when I brought all of the issues that had come for Warrant and Finance for the board to decide. I know in regards to the cemetery, the conversation was in the paving, if the cemetery committee or the cemetery committee didn't ask the Board of Selectmen for more money, then the selectmen have to assume what they requested, you know, is what they needed to do their job. I mean, the board didn't send out memos this year telling everybody to flatline. So certainly if they needed more money, like many other departments that put in for increases, they could have asked for it. So the board didn't think they were really in the position to trump the committee themselves. This is, you know, in regards to your statement that they think they need more money.
No, but I said they need more money.
Right.
But I can't imagine, before the committee presented their budget, if people had came and said, we would like to see more money in there to repair some veteran stones. I seriously have my doubts that the committee would have said, no, we don't want that money to do that.
We don't, no, we wouldn't have said no. We never say no to money. Nobody does.
And I'm certain that a small increase would have been fine with the Board of Selectmen as well. But again, they trust the people that are running this committee, so unless they ask for extra money, they're not going to just put it in on their behalf.
And it's not that we don't appreciate everything they've done, and we're trying to move forward on it. And I've got my co-chair who always says more money is always grateful because we can do more things for it. The thing is, there's only 5 of us that volunteer. 2 of us live in town, the other 3 live out of town. All 5 of us are on the Historical Society, so we try to do the best to our abilities to make sure that the town looks appropriate. It was the last 3-4 years we've kind of revamped, got together. It was just me and the co-chair at one point, and a lot of volunteers throughout the town that were actually helping us maintain and cut up and make sure that they do look halfway decent. Is there a lot of work ahead of us? Oh, God bless, yes. There's so much that, like I told them, they can't afford to put it on the ballot. We'd be broke. That's why we're taking one step at a time. That's why we had the rollover. Just for one stone, for what, just the name, the dates, and what they are, it's about $1,000. And we have all those veterans out there, and some, unfortunately, they've gone to the wayside. It's not intentional, it just happens. And now that the state has stepped in with more state statutes and more awareness that this needs to be taken care of, they've brought it more to our attention.
I was just trying to show my support to what
Well,
you're doing, Lois,
and
and to the veterans.
And that's kind of what it
I think it's a
boils
small
down to.
thing to pay, and the selectmen didn't feel it was necessary, and that's fine.
We actually turned around, and before we...
I think that's correct.
No, I was going to say, no. Before we made our decision, myself and the co-chair talked about, because they gave us a percentage. I don't know, what was it, 1%?
No, the selectmen, this year the selectmen sent out memos.
No, you didn't give, you gave...
They said they recommended they would support up to a 3% increase on staff, but they asked for people just to submit their budgets. I mean, look at the fire department, for example. Theirs was over $100,000 increase.
We turned around, just did the 3% because that was our understanding.
Well, it said 3% on salaries.
Right, we just did the 3% because that was our understanding.
Right, but
But
I
I
just
talked to
make
my,
sure
like I
Dennis
said,
knows it's
we
clear
talked
that
to the
the
board, we
selectmen
talked to the
didn't
co-chair, and I asked if we could
guys
work amongst this, and my co-chair did all the figures, and he said, yes, this is what we can do, we can work with it. We don't want to, and obviously, yes, we'll take donations, yes, if you guys want to give us money, sure, I'll take it. We'll figure out a way to use it, but we don't want to break the town in process, because I've explained to the Board of Selectmen on several different occasions, doing stones is not cheap. Replacing what we have to replace is not cheap. We try to get as many people out there that want to help us. Come on down, help us. We're not going to tell you no, we're just going to tell you, please, this is what you can and can't do.
And I can't imagine the board would tell you no if you asked for it.
No, I've never been told no, only that first year we were tight, but after
So
that,
maybe
it's
you
been okay.
can run by your committee what Dennis's thoughts are and see if they, if they're looking for more. I mean,
I won't meet before
I think
we're
Dennis has a really
done.
good point. It's a really good point.
and I'm sure the board would support it. I agree with Dennis 100%. But at the same time, the selectmen aren't going to go and just pick random committees and departments and increase them, give them more than what they've asked for. I mean, we trust that you guys are in that position to ask for what you need. And until you ask for a higher amount, I mean, it's hard for the board to, I mean, you know that committee best. So if you need to replace some stones, I mean, maybe phone some committee members and talk to them. I mean, anything's possible.
Lot more than what's on the
veterans are
page.
certainly top priority, I think, for all of us.
And not only that, we have some rollover, so it isn't too bad. We have,
Well, I'm not saying the selectmen cut the
no,
amount.
no, I'm not saying
That
that
isn't what
either.
I said at all.
But we have.
They just chose not to increase it.
No, that's not
They
true.
approved what we requested, Dennis.
Exactly.
The selectmen have the authority to put in the dollar amount that they want to put in.
We requested a
chose-
specific amount.
And they chose to put in the amount that was presented to them
Exactly,
by the committee. But
exactly.
that doesn't mean they do not have the authority to change it to $5,000.
Not arguing that point.
No, they
Or
can do
$10,000,
what
or $500,000.
Good luck.
I'm
they
just
can do
saying.
what they want.
I agree, yes, they could increase it. However, without them, number one, there aren't too many selectmen seated now or past seated who ever made a trip to a cemetery,
Nope, I can't name one of them,
okay?
except
So
for Mr. Driscoll.
There are very few people who know the conditions of the cemeteries, okay?
Mr.
And-
Long has been to quite a few of them. so-
And the conditions that, need to be
Besides
taken
your
care of.
backyard.
So as far as asking for more money, yeah, we could have asked for more money. But what was the first thing that we had to do before this warrant even came out? Before this warrant even came out, they had to find a bunch of cuts in funding. Otherwise, you're looking at a 13 to 35% increase in everybody's taxes across the board. Well, nobody wanted to see taxes go up.
Well, that's the opinion. I didn't want to see taxes go up. But
Well, I
it's
have to
just like
take,
I explained.
I have to take
like
the
I explained
treasurer's
to Ed,
word.
And I was explaining it to Michelle. I say, there's more revenues in here that we're not taking advantage of, that we could, with a tighter budgeting process on the revenues, and we could do what was in there without raising taxes. That's what I'm saying.
You need to run for selectman again, Dennis.
I'm not gonna run for selectman again.
All right, is there any more information on this that we need to discuss?
Well, what I was getting to is that as far as rollover, at this point, we've got $6,000 rollover. And we're asking for another $3,200 basically for that. We do go out, we have purchased some things, and, it's, we don't want to break y'all, we can only do what we can do.
It's fine, Lois. I was just trying to support you, like I
and
said.
I'm not
Thank you,
saying you're
Dennis.
wrong. Maybe next year when this budget comes up, you'll be right in front of us and pushing.
Any other questions?
Knowing me, I might change my mind by then and go the opposite way.
Can we move on to another question I had for Michelle?
Surely, by all means. Question for Michelle.
Okay, so I just wanted some numbers from you. As far as, I know that we've had a lot of talk about 3 months, to be able to pay 3 months' worth of bills for the undesignated fund balance, but what does 3 months' worth of bills look like? Like, what's the number roughly? 1.1. And how much is in there?
Right now, we have 1.3. So our undesignated fund balance policy calls for a minimum of 2 months and a maximum of 4 months. So we would never have more than 4 months in there. And typically we stay right around 3 months. We are a little over that this year. What we have been calculating in the overages on winter, when the board uses part of the undesignated fund to offset as a tax commitment, we take into consideration that there's typically at least $100,000 overdraft. It's a little less than that this year so far, knock on wood, hopefully we're done. So I think if the increases that were requested this year for winter stockpiling and plowing that bring us up to what the actual 5-year average is on expenses there will give us more of a stability to know, how much of that undesignated fund we can actually use. Of that $1.3 million, almost 300,000 of that is not liquid, so it's money that we actually haven't collected yet. We will collect someday, or we'll own another piece of property and have a new fixed asset, but Those unpaid taxes are part of that number.
And that's before what you're planning on taking out, after you take that 450 or whatever it is out?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's 450?
Well, whatever you're taking out, 400, what are you,
The unpaid taxes?
what are you proposing to take out of undesignated fund balance to offset taxes? I thought it was 400.
We left it open-ended.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, so that it falls within the policy that the board established last year. I would imagine at least 400,000.
I thought somebody said I heard a number 4 or 450.
That was the number originally presented to keep it flat.
Okay.
Tax rate.
Thank you.
Any other?
Are we having a special town or special warrant article for the overage for this winter,
It'll be in your June warrant unless something happens over the next month.
for the overage?
Right, we haven't met 15%, so we don't have to have a special town meeting?
You haven't,
No,
over the winter maintenance?
yeah. So it's under the 15% allowed by law, what they've gone over.
Can we get a
Is that the
clarification?
winter maintenance line, or is that the whole road?
The whole road, the law says, because we could, legally, we could go 15% over in the summer maintenance. We don't have a standard of doing that.
Well, we never
unless there
have.
was, unless there's an emergency.
We never have used the summer maintenance budget as part of that. We've always, whatever was over in the winter was over. And traditionally, we've never allowed them to go over in the summer budgets.
Yes. I think, I want to say 1 year it went over in summer, but there was it was like a hurricane or something, just looking back that I could find before my time.
206
Yeah,
floods.
so, but the law says your entire road budget.
Okay.
So
George washed out.
it's 130,000, I think, is what the 15% is of the whole road budget.
We're at, what, 75-ish?
Yeah.
But doing that, that means you're taking money out of the, for lack of a better explanation, out of the summer maintenance budget. Say like, because you spent this amount of money out of the winter, so now you're taking it out of the summer budget, they're not gonna have that money to spend.
So we're not taking it out of anywhere, really. I mean, it's taken out of fictitious accounts right now, but in your June warrant, there's an article, it doesn't have numbers in it yet because I didn't feel it was appropriate to officially call winter over, that will say, do you go to ratify the overdraft in these winter accounts from the undesignated fund?
So it's not going to come out of the summer maintenance fund. It's going to come out of undesignated fund.
It'll just be those three accounts, the overdraft in those three accounts will be ratified at town meeting.
So there's still plenty of money for like District 1 to do all the spring
Oh,
cleanup
absolutely, yeah. we're
and
not-
all that stuff.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a lot of money for District 1, but District 2 is pretty well off.
But District 1's lack of money doesn't have anything to do with the overdraft. It has to do with the prior road commissioner and what they spent at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Well, I'll be glad when we get this all straightened out.
I hope I live that long.
But traditionally, we always have just used the summer, the winter.
Yeah, I mean, we don't take from the summer.
We haven't used the
But
whole
that
town budget.
is included, that budget is counted in the total budget where we get the 15% allowed by law.
And that's state law.
Oh, I appreciate that, but traditionally,
Okay.
we've just done it on, we've had special town meetings because we're over the 15% in the winter money.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, we're always.
That's what we've done in the
over
past.
winter. Yeah, I want to say for the past 10 years, at least, we've used the whole budget amount, but it's only the winter accounts that are over that we go to special town meetings for. Yeah, we
And
don't-
we're not doing that this year.
Unless it snows again.
Yeah. I think we're good. I think we can wait until June and ratify it there.
We have about $40,000 left, so assuming we don't spend that.
So we're doing the same thing we've always done, we just don't have to do it before
We don't have
June.
to do it earlier. Yeah.
That's just,
Yeah.
Any other questions for Michelle?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, this
Speak, Tom.
involves revenue. As I understand, well, I have several actually, but let's start with this one, revenue. On excise tax revenue estimating, I understand that, and we traditionally have exceeded the estimated amount, and you consistently have been above the estimate for the past 3 years. And from what Jen said the other night, I understood that you had adjusted the revenue estimate up.
Yes, I have
okay.
increased a lot of the revenues up this year.
Okay.
Excise tax revenue, I was a little more conservative with.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
There are several bills
Yeah.
before the legislature right now that are talking about changing how we calculate the excise tax, which would be a significant
Right.
decrease in revenue for the town.
That's one of the issues. The other issue is it seems clear that new automobile sales are going to decline in this coming year, and so that's also going to bring down that revenue. And I'm glad to hear you're aware of it and have considered those things and moving on from there. I have one other thing that's totally off the issue of this warrant, but that's okay, and I will wait.
Does it pertain to Michelle, though? We're going to let her go.
Well, yeah, it does, but
But if it doesn't pertain to the warrant, I would prefer to stick with warrant business,
Okay.
please.
that's your prerogative, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know, unless you want to meet every day for the next 30 days,
Well, I think I've gotten a good start on this.
I think we've got, you know, like 75 articles that we have to consider before this town meeting. 75, I believe, is the count. Some of them don't require any action by this committee. However, there are quite a few that do require.
Actually, this issue I can raise directly with Michelle, which might be a more appropriate way to do it anyway, if she doesn't mind.
Take that up with her later. Anybody
I
else?
have some,
You have something you want to throw at us?
just some more trees for you guys.
Ooh, it's not Christmas.
So this is to
Well, it was
replace that
last
last page. It's
Oh,
just a change
good.
in the revenues. A change was made elsewhere in the article, and after I sent the warrant out, I had a little panic attack. Oh, it didn't change the revenue. So,
Thank you. Okay.
uh,
Updated on April Fool's Day, huh?
right.
Thank you.
And we have an updated
This is,
informational pages, capital improvement and carryover funds, updated balances, updated revenue projections, and updated undesignated fund.
Why the price difference on Article 73
70.
compared to what you gave us compared to what you got now? Go to-
Um,
and we-
769,
comes from
907.
ACAT revenue.
That's right.
Okay.
If you want to touch that, touch the subject.
I just want to know what we were looking
no.
at.
I've got it.
Thank you very much. Don't have to get.
Touch that touchy subject.
I just want to.
I've already seen it. I already knew what it was. If you'd have asked me, I'd have told you.
She was standing right here.
Completely updated to match your warrant totals.
thank you. Oh, so this just goes and plugs into the booklet, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Oh, got the date on it and everything, good.
Yes.
Is this
you.
change?
Yeah, well,
From
there
what
are,
you just
there are
gave
a
me?
few, the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah, those have changed a little bit.
Lord have mercy.
So we want to work off April Fool's Day numbers,
All right.
and then tomorrow we'll change it again.
I'm not coming.
Email them.
Anything else from Michelle?
Related to the warrant.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, Lord. Just a minute.
I was looking, but I haven't got there. Did the selectmen change? There was a concern about the APAT money staying in the APAT account. And the last few years, they put it into undesignated fund balance. And there was a concern that it ought to be put in there, and what did the selectmen decide on that?
The selectmen decided not to change it.
So it's still going into the undesignated fund balance?
Yeah, how the article is written this year is to appropriate from the revenue, but it does not allow for the unused revenue to be carried forward.
So the intent was, there's stuff that needs to be updated and even set up. So the stuff can be televised, and there isn't enough money in the budget with whatever the wages and all this stuff to get this done. And I guess you're gonna go back to the person's in charge didn't request it. So the selectmen aren't going to, they're doing what they were asked by whoever presented the budget.
Well, APAT is certainly aware of how much revenue comes in from Atlantic Broadband. So let's just say that 45,000 or 50,000 comes in. He chose to put in a budget for 35 or 40,000. I mean, he knows how much those revenues are, so he could have put in a budget for the full amount of the revenues.
Can we just request that he come to our next meeting, please? Because because I'd like to know what his plan is for, like, downstairs, for example. I can't hear a planning board meeting when I try to watch it. You know, and I was hoping, is it in his budget?
No, he feels like it's more staff training and feels like he has the equipment. It just needs to be set up a different way, and he was going to talk to his employees about that. We offer, because that was one of the things that code enforcement requested as well, and again, he declined it, said he didn't need additional equipment for it, and it was more staff training.
Okay.
And it would, you know, it could be as loud and clear as these meetings, and he was going to work on that internally.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about, no, I don't know if it's on the PAC, if they're a part of APAC, what about like the selectmen's meet, like when we had the town meeting last year, couldn't understand nothing by the time it was all done. Nobody could hear anything what was going on.
Nobody can hear you.
I know.
Move closer to the mic.
But,
I agree, as somebody that takes minutes from those tapes, I spoke to him directly about last year's annual town meeting, and you couldn't hear at all.
Nothing.
And he does not say, you know, he doesn't say it's an equipment issue. He says that he is reviewing policies and procedures with his staff. I assure you, he comes to us anytime he needs anything, and he won't hesitate to, but that's just not what he's telling us the issues are. And he knows that he's under budget for what comes in, so he knows that he can ask for more. He got the same thing in regards to the salary, 3%, but if he needed something to better run the channel, or thought he could cover more, Dennis mentioned once, you know, covering more events and increasing those stipend lines. He tells the board that he's confident and comfortable with the numbers the way they are. So again, it's hard for them to increase that. I mean, it's different than what he's saying about the leftover money, and that's a whole different conversation, but he's not asking for more.
And I guess that's not really what I'm getting to. Is it gonna be more clearer for everybody to understand when we're having the meetings, especially town meeting, because that's very important. Because I went back to check something, because I had an issue, and we couldn't hear it.
I agree 100%, and I spoke to him after the June town meeting. I couldn't hear anything either.
Yeah.
But I needed to go back for clarification. So he has been spoken to. He knows there's issues, but the steps he's telling us that he needs to take to correct them are not equipment related.
I went back to listen to a rec meeting because I was looking for a vote that we took on something, and that whole meeting, like after the first 5 minutes, there was no audio at all, none. You know, the audio is a problem, and if he's, I have grave concerns about the fact that some of that money is going back into the municipal undesignated fund balance, and the channel is not operating at peak performance.
Okay, I will speak to him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay,
I have no more for Michelle.
so, huh?
Anything more?
None.
For Michelle?
Hi, Michelle.
Has to say, no.
You have anything
She
more
has
for
to
us?
say. All right, we have several things in this list of concerns that Mr. Gore brought forward that we are going to need to have the fire department available to answer questions, because they are concerns regarding fire department warrant articles or, yes.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, some of these Michelle may be able to address very quickly, or Jen may be able to address. I'm not sure who. I don't know who is doing the capital accounting these days in the office.
Well, as far as your first concern was, are there to be a total of 16 sets of SCBA?
Right.
There's actually going to be 17. 9 and 8 are 17, last time I checked my math. So there'll be 17. As far as the remainder of your concerns on Article 29, or 26, excuse me, no, 29, bad eyes and all, those need to be answered by the fire people,
Right.
okay?
Well, except for the last question, I think, in each of these, and because that has to do with accounting, the accounting methods, the capital accounting methods in town.
Yeah, because anything over $5,000 is counted in your capital asset.
Right, okay, and we're maintaining that, Is that ever being audited? Is that,
The auditor actually holds the list.
okay, good, thank
He
you.
creates the list every year. Every year we add more things to it.
Right, okay, good.
The better question, Tom, would have been to ask, who the hell is doing the equipment inventory?
Well, that's a relevant question, too. I was just more concerned to know whether the administration was in process or existed to maintain that capital accounting system that we created 10, 15 years ago.
So, excuse me, most of the questions that you're asking regarding Article 30 are answered when the teachers workshop on that Saturday.
That could be. That could be. Yeah, maybe somebody else can answer them. I don't know. There are questions.
I want the fire chief back.
I have him April 8th at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, because I had requested a maintenance plan, on the building. And I would also like to know exactly what was spent on maintenance, not the dollar amount, but what the dollars, were used for.
Right.
And those are the two things that I'd really like to see. And
Again, Dennis, the building.
but a maintenance plan for the building. Hopefully there's one. We have two very expensive buildings over there. Hopefully there's some kind of a plan. And,
Only one belongs to the fire department.
well, regardless, they're maintaining both of them. And, I want to know what the money was spent on this year in maintenance, for the building.
And what it was spent on, is that what you said?
Yes.
How much was spent and what it was spent on?
Yeah. And we really need a clarification on the, equipment. If I remember at the meeting, on that Saturday, he considered the new hoses and nozzles and things like that, capital equipment.
It is, that's correct.
Well, what's that?
That's correct. It is capital equipment.
Well, again, I don't consider putting a new nozzle on a hose, capital. It's maintenance of your equipment.
Doesn't it depend on the life expectancy and the value?
I think that
Yeah.
the problem you're having is the employment of the term improvement. It is, I've had this discussion with the school committee on a number of occasions. When you're replacing or matching or maintaining your maintenance, that's maintenance. That's not improvement.
Right.
Okay, so it's not a capital improvement, and that's something Michelle and I have addressed, and I see here that it's on this list, and I did not address it tonight, so I'll come back in a minute. When you're maintaining capital, that is maintenance, and that's a fixed cost. When you are improving, then you're expanding the capacity of the equipment, not just renewing, but expanding the capacity of the facility.
But putting a new nozzle on a hose isn't expanding anything, Tom.
No, that's
You're replacing
correct.
what you
That's
already
correct.
had.
That's correct, and I agree with you 100%. And the terms are getting confused, and they're getting confused down at the school too. The discussion we had and the way I illustrated this last year was the school department had to replace pumps, and they took for the wells. And they took money from the capital improvement account. I said, and here's a distinction. if you have a well pump that's guaranteed for 10 years and you replace it with a pump that's guaranteed for 20 years, that is in part maintenance and in part a capital improvement. If you have a 10-year pump and you replace it with a new 10-year pump, that's maintenance.
I agree.
If you drill a new well and buy a new pump and put it down there, that's a capital improvement. In other words, going from 2 wells to 3 wells or whatever. And that's a distinction that we're having trouble here, which takes me back to Article 28. And Michelle, this goes to a question that I raised with you a couple of years ago, and we had an exchange on it, and we agreed. And so if you'll quickly look at Article 28, Mr. Chairman, with your permission.
You got it, Tom.
Okay. The article, I better look at my own Article 28.
Is that a truck fund?
Yes, because we're calling that a capital improvement, and that is that it's coming from the capital improvement account, and that's not a capital improvement, that's a capital equipment expense, right?
Right.
And so I would like to see, if you can find your way to do it, to change the terminology that we're using on that account and make it clear that we're changing the terminology on the account. If we're going to have it for a truck, then it should be a capital equipment account, right? And you and I have both agreed on that in the past. Yeah. Okay. So that takes care of that issue.
But gee, that was easy.
Well, we've had this, Michelle and I had this discussion a couple of years ago.
I think that Roland kind of opened the door to this when he said the fire department has possession of one building. And I want to make sure, we had a visit over there on Sunday. Selectman Walsh was kind enough, and Ricky Smith was kind enough to meet us over there. The rec committee was there. David Langley came to look at the grounds. I think many people know that the rec committee had inquired about making that a community center. Upon the site visit, the fire department has it chock full of equipment and has a need for the building. The building's a lot smaller than we realized. The layout inside is not what we thought it was. The slope coming off from Sanborn Road, the grade is more significant once you're standing on the ground behind the ambulance building than when you're sitting up on Sanborn Road, you know. So that being said, I think the general consensus of the rec committee was that that building would not suit the needs for a community rec center. And I'm sure that you'll hear that from the rec committee eventually. But so fully, the fire department in their building maintenance plan, after being in that ambulance building, there are serious building needs that are going to need to be addressed in that building to protect that asset. And they are responsible for that building because they are using it. So when they do their building maintenance plan, I would really hope that that ambulance building would be included in that building maintenance plan.
So noted.
Okay.
And Carol just closed the door.
Mr. Chair,
What's our time?
were we going to go back over the ones that we first did on Tom's paper, the Article 5 and 6 that we, that first
Yes,
he was
we are
supposed
going
to
to. What time is it, please?
It is approximately
7:30.
7:30.
Well, we're an hour and a half into this. How long do you want to stay?
Well, I want to at least set the schedule for what departments that we're going to meet with and what nights. And I did.
Next Monday, we are going to have the fire department here.
Okay, hold on now. So Monday, 4/8, fire department.
APEC?
Is there anybody else you want to schedule for that night?
APEC?
I had originally asked for APAT, but if you think that he's not going to budge on that, then that's more an issue with the Board of Selectmen, you know,
Budget
for the board.
on-
As far as
Audio
putting
issue.
some money in his budget to kind of fix the needs that are not being met.
So I'll reiterate with him that those needs are as I understood them, and I will add him if that's the case. But he has not come to us saying that he needs any of those things. And
Okay.
we have clearly had this conversation, but let me have him again and I'll send you an email.
Okay, thank you.
I don't, I'm just speaking for myself.
Speak, Dennis, speak.
I don't see any need to meet with Bobby on the transfer station. That's pretty cut and dry, and he does a pretty good job up there, and the only increase is a little bit of money in their wages, so
No need for Bobby.
that's my personal feeling.
Is there anybody else?
I have no questions about the transfer station.
I have none either.
What about forestry?
When would you like to see forestry?
The forester, you mean?
The forester. And why do you want to see the forester?
Well, they probably want to see the forester because I said we don't need a forester.
I would kind of,
And you'll see it in the warrant. If anybody would like to look at it, you'll see in the warrant, I believe it's in here from,
I remember that.
zoning board, where we're deleting all our authority with the forest, because the state has decided that the town has no authority, that it all falls under them now.
I guess,
So,
not to interrupt you, but I
that's
guess
why.
that what I would like to see is if we could request from Ken Paul just what the state is requiring now of the town.
A really well-written letter on why he is needed, a forester is needed, not necessarily.
Okay, can we just find out from Ken what the law is, and then the letter as well? Is the letter in my packet?
Well,
The letter's not in your packet, but I can forward it to you guys.
Yeah.
He addressed it to the Board of Selectmen, so I wanted them to see it first.
Kenny did?
No, the forester.
Oh,
Okay.
Is this,
So, we're gonna ask code enforcement what the law is in regards to the forester.
Yeah, what is the town's obligation now that the law has changed? That's the question.
Because the code enforcement is not obligated to be certified as a forester, so he's not up to, he doesn't have the knowledge of the
Right,
state
and that's been
standards
there
of
for quite a
forestry.
while.
So anytime he has a question with logging, people come in for logging or developments, he can ask.
But I think now he has to ask the state. That was my understanding when I read the thing.
Turnaround time to ask the state is not sufficient.
If somebody's,
Go asking Augusta questions, it's not as quick as asking the town.
Sometimes that's just the way the law.
but if somebody's logging, if somebody's going to log, Kenny Paul doesn't find out about it until it's after it's already happened. It's done.
It's already done.
He does not get advanced knowledge.
Yeah, could you forward the letter, and then if we have additional questions, we'll
Yeah.
let you know?
Could you make sure we all get a copy of that, please, Jen?
And if you did have other legal questions regarding it and had to, a lawyer or something would be way more expensive than having our town forester. So there are plenty of good reasons to have him.
well, maybe we could get a list of what he did this last fiscal year for us.
Well, I know that he was supposed to do a report for Town Farm Road. and
That's-
have you-
that's-
That's
different.
what she just
No, that's
finished telling
different.
us.
We paid him extra money for that.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm talking as a stipend position
Yo, that too.
of $500 or $1,000 as he's asking. What did he do, what service did he give us in this past year for that position?
well,
That's what I'd like to see.
when he was here for that budget review we had, he said to think of it as a retainer, like a lawyer, that fee was there, and he used it like 3 times. He was called like 3 times by the board to come in and,
Kind of
Give
like
his
the health
opinion.
officer.
Yeah, and I have the letter here, I mean, it's a couple of paragraphs I can forward it to you, but in a paragraph, he does kind of spell out what he believes that he does, but he's happy to come before you as well. So we can put him in for next week, if you'd like, and I'll forward this to you guys right now.
He might also serve as a resource for Ken Ken is dealing with plant issues on the waterfront, on the lakefront, I would imagine, like tree cutting, and I don't know, I'm just suggesting that might be a use for him too.
And just for clarification purposes, Jen, did the forester request a increase in his stipend, or was that something that the Board of Selectmen came?
Board of Selectmen.
Board of Select-
Thank you. So it was never, ever something that the forester requested. so that everybody is aware of that.
So I think maybe we can find out how many times the planning board consulted with him in the last year, and how many times Ken
And
did.
it's also the Forestry Conservation Committee, there are other committees that
Yeah.
reached out to, so I'll do some digging, and I'm probably just
Thank
gonna
you.
have him come before you next week. It's just as easy to hear it from him,
Mm-hmm.
and the board will be able to explain their reasoning on the stipend increase next week as well.
Perfect.
So you have fire
Forest-
department,
I have fire department, possibly APAT,
possibly APAT,
Forester for sure.
okay. I think that's enough.
Anyone more? No?
No, I think that's plenty for next week. In the time between now and next Monday's meeting, I would hope that everyone would have time to review the warrant as it has been presented, and if any other questions come up, that you would jot them down so that we can be right on top of, you know, what we're talking about.
Can we look ahead to the following week, the 15th, please? Maybe that would be a good meeting for the road commissioners.
You really want to call the road commissioners?
I do.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. 15th.
Road Commissioner, 6 o'clock.
And maybe in, you know, not that it would be a requirement, not that we can make them do it, but maybe the two candidates could attend that night too, since one of them will be,
Right.
not that they're going to answer questions, but it's an important discussion.
I will reach out to both candidates as well. Anybody else for the 15th?
Anybody else for the
I think
15th?
the road
The roads will take the whole
probably
meeting.
take till at least midnight.
All right, we got one more meeting after the 15th.
And
And
then
if-
the second, I'm sorry, Lois, you understood the difference with the meeting? Did you see my reply?
No, I did not.
So the 22nd is a public hearing for the two articles at the beginning, 5 and 6, or 6 and 7 for the road committee ordinance and the road commissioner ordinance. The public hearing is scheduled on the 22nd, so that's why you guys would be downstairs, because that's been set for a few weeks.
This Honey Charlie being downstairs.
Could we
You're
make
not
it
meeting
possible?
downstairs?
I'm not, they can, I'm not.
Why not?
I don't like downstairs,
Well-
never have, never will.
Okay.
We can cancel that week.
I was thinking
Public
either,
hearing, I'd like to go to the public
I'd like to go to
hearing.
the public hearing too. Maybe we can skip a week and meet on the 29th.
You
When do
guys
we
are-
have to have
you-
our recommendations
You guys are
for?
pushing it.
I mean, you could make them, if you had them, if you met on the 29th, we'd be looking for actual recommendations that night.
Okay.
Of all of them, so I guess, you want to just go through the departments real quick, Roland, and make sure there's nobody else that you want to meet with, you're good with social services?
Before you do that, I mentioned to Ed and, I think it was Elise, last Tuesday night, when this schedule was set, that's when the town meeting was set for the 15th of June. I see no logical reason, and this isn't a criticism, but there's no logical reason that we have to have our recommendations by the 29th. At the least, it should be extended a week because of the public hearing. We should be able to extend it a week to make our recommendations because the town meeting's a week later. And the way it sits right now, we have to be all done 2 months before the town meeting. But we don't have to be. And so I don't see why as a committee, we can't meet, go to the public hearing like most of us like to, and meet the next 2 weeks. As long as we've got our stuff all done by the first part of May, postponing it a week from what we originally thought, and basically we're running the same schedule.
And that's fine, there's no objection to you guys making your final recommendations around May 6th.
Yeah.
Especially where you're gonna make recommendations on the secret ballot. We wanna try to get the warrant posted as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We have absentee ballots, we have other things.
I
We're
appreciate
trying to
that.
avoid the whole it's only posted for 7 days. So, and obviously typing in the recommendations takes time, getting you guys to proof it takes time, getting the board's recommendations on there, getting it approved, then getting it signed. And it takes some time to do, so but we're fine with the 6th.
This,
I don't have any objections to not meeting on the, what was it, 22nd?
22nd.
And allowing, everybody the opportunity to attend the public hearing. and thereby extending our meeting time out one additional week. So that would mean that we would have to have a meeting on the 29th. And who would we like to have at that meeting?
Selectmen.
Right, I agree, 100%.
The selectmen.
We should ask the selectmen to the last meeting we have before we
To-
do our recommendations.
I
Agreed.
don't agree. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to talk to the selectmen, they have a meeting every Tuesday.
That some of
except
us
this
can't
coming week.
attend.
That's true.
I would like to have them come to a warrant and finance meeting, please. I think we should vote.
I'm coming if they want to come.
I'll make a motion that we request the selectmen to attend our last hearing prior to the meeting at which we vote.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, I think we will deal with a number of issues between now and the time we wrap this up and be coming closer to a set of recommendations. And also the selectmen will have an opportunity to refine their approach to this warrant. Okay? And
You're
if they're-
hoping that the selectmen are going to refine their approach to this warrant.
That is their option. We have requested it in the past and been told that, they weren't particularly interested. I'm always hopeful, and I remain hopeful, that they will listen to us and we can at least have a discussion about what our concerns are, which we have been unable to do for a couple of years now. Okay, so that would be why I would encourage this.
And I would hope that that meeting with the selectmen would be a little more than the terminology in the warrant, you know? Like, if we as a committee feel strongly, you know, about a certain department or something like that, we could ask them to reconsider the warrant before it gets posted as well.
That is certainly appropriate.
One can ask for many things.
And you can always
And-
put in a recommendation too. If they're not.
Any other discussion?
Well, one thing that, one of many, but one thing I'm thinking of right now is the forester.
Can we stay on?
No, we're talking about the selectmen.
Yes.
The selectmen apparently took it upon themselves, without a request, to double
increase
that
his stipend.
dollar amount.
Dennis, we also
So-
increased the health inspector and the EMA director because we noticed those lines hadn't been increased in several years, and they do have certificates they need to follow and meetings to attend, and
Plus, you don't have an EMA director now.
no, because.
So it's kind of like your dog officer. If you're gonna get a new one, you gotta find some money to pay him. And the amount of money that we're paying for an EMA person, as Tom can testify to, and myself being involved in this stuff, being the EMA guy is, what Bill Catanzi was doing it for was just crazy. He might as well not have done it, he might as well have done it for nothing. It's a huge undertaking, and it's a lot more than a forester is, I can tell you that much.
I would also interject that the title of the position is out of order with the ordinance. In the implication is when you label somebody the EMA director, emergency management agency director, they have some kind of power. And this question arose with me in a couple of storms in 2006, 2005, 2006, 2007, and I had people telling me, well, you have the authority to do this, you have the authority to do that, and you have the authority to do the other thing. When we needed power to operate the radio system over here, I said, no, I have no power at all. I will be glad to go ask the fire department to come over and set up the generator so that we could run this, but I can't tell them to do that. And that's kind of where it goes.
What was
So-
your point, Dennis?
What was my point?
Yes.
I
That's
just say
one
it.
of the reasons why he wants to talk to the selectmen.
And I have to believe that all three of them will, you know, assuming their schedules allow, I'm sure they'll come and speak to you about the warrant. I don't expect that's not gonna be an issue. I'm certain they'll come and, yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm probably gonna vote to give Steve Bodkin a rate of pay $1,000. I just wanna know why it's like it is and what we got for $1,000. Basically, that's what I want to know.
And I think that sometimes that's what happens, is that when we are, you know, because I addressed this on Sunday when I went over to the ambulance building, because I got a lot of blowback from the fire department because the rec wanted to look at that building. I mean, a lot of blowback. And I think it's unfair to hold it against people because they're doing the due diligence for the town to make sure that all options are explored. You know, there's nothing wrong with asking a question. And when we ask a question and somebody just sits there and, you know, gets so upset and, you know, attacks you personally, it is very disheartening to be a volunteer in this town.
Thank you, Carol.
And with that being said.
I have a
to say
motion.
about Ricky Smith.
I have a motion.
Ricky Smith was there, and you would find nobody more professional and more caring and explaining than Ricky Smith was. I tell you right now, he did a great job.
He says he didn't know anything about it, he wasn't invited to the walkthrough, so a little different, we didn't go down that road. But
I'm just saying, Ricky was
He
great.
wasn't invited.
That's all I can say.
Okay, can we vote?
Can we move on this motion that's before
Oh, if you
the
want.
committee? Or did you want to just throw it out the window?
No.
All those in favor of the selectmen attending our last meeting, or requesting that the selectmen attend the last Warrant and Finance Committee meeting, please raise your hands.
April 29th.
On the 29th.
Can I vote?
Those opposed?
Virginia's
two.
not here. I know.
Well, I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Either you or Carol, I don't care.
You both going the same way?
You're
Yeah.
both going the same way, so guess
We
what?
all set.
Yeah.
Is that it?
What's that?
Unanimous, you would all
Oh,
like, all like them there.
Wouldn't hurt.
So no other departments, no social services,
I think we can handle those with email.
okay? And I do have all of the packets for you. that you
Yeah,
want.
I had a list of questions and I just haven't sent it to you yet.
Any further discussion? I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Michelle, you have a minute, or you gotta go home?
You don't want to adjourn, Dennis? You just want to stay here forever and ever?
Don't keep talking. I'm having fun.
Believe me, we got a lot more fun coming on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Why?